All right, we're going to recap day 7 at Oaklawn Park. And I debated whether I was going to do a video today or just kind of combine it with tomorrow. But going over the races, going over the results, we'll put a video together because there is one thing to touch on or one trainer to touch on, as Robertino Diodoro had a big day yesterday. He recorded 3 wins. One of those we'll kind of get into detail, but actually almost 4 wins. His horse in, let's see, I think it was race 8. The horse in race 8 finished in a tight photo for the win. So that was, almost 4 wins on an 8-race card is a big day for him. And that kind of started off in race 3 with Conqueror getting the win there. Was a blanket finish. Multiple horses were on the wire, but still a good win from him. One of the horses in that race did have a bit of an excuse. That is Sharp Art, the number 3 horse. It was a rough break, and then rushing up into a fast pace, and then kind of losing ground. So I would excuse that race almost all around. I just think that sometimes when that happens, horses just never have a chance to compete. And again, 4 horses on the wire with Conqueror for Diodoro with the win, Recount and Facilitator, Rockshaw, all those horses finishing kind of right there. I thought it was a good effort. The number 7 Facilitator moved wide off the turn and then closed ground. Kind of rated his race about the same as Conqueror. That second win, that came in race 5. So we'll kind of pull up the chart for race 5, looking at that second winner. Well, this is loading here. And while that's loading, good luck to everybody at the NHC this weekend. You guys are probably studying and not watching, but if you catch up with this later, wishing you all a good luck there. All right, the 5th race. So I wrote up this race as preview on Brisnet. And I highlighted a couple horses in here that I thought had an opportunity, and not really much of a fire from those horses. I mean, Riker, I thought he'd have a upside making his second start of the meet. A little bit of a pace edge, but was concerned about distance. And distance did seem to be a factor. He chased the winner. So again, runner from Diodoro, Mucho Macho Dan, pushed out of the gate, sent to the front, and just kind of, ran his race on the front end. Riker was chasing, a perfect trip from that position, but I think distance, he doesn't really want to go this long, even at the right level, which this is kind of the right level for him to compete at. Just still not quite there as far as distance. Gospel Abe making his second start of the meet. He had some upside. He ran a good race to finish 4th. Wide move off the turn, competitive effort for the level. A little bit disappointing. Satellite, I thought he had a look in here. But one thing I did notice about him, he wasn't really handling the track, and the track was listed as good. That's kind of one thing with off tracks that is tough. I mean, some horses, even if they've run well over an off track, to think all off tracks are the same is not always the case. And that didn't really look to be the case with him. He kind of seemed like he was struggling over the track. So maybe we'll see some upside out of that. We'll go over race. Let's go over race 6. I'll go over race 7 a little bit in detail. I know it's kind of getting off the Diodoro theme, but race 6 I think is kind of the most important winner to discuss from his barn. And I kind of touched on this in the last video, talking about horses, the difference between a hard race where the horse is being taxed throughout and a regression effort. Sometimes they can be the same, sometimes they can be different. This one is a case of a regression. So we're talking about the winner of the race, number 9, Matru. Okay, so kind of taking a step back. So there's a lot of factors that you want to kind of look at as far as, when you're grading a horse that's regressed. A lot of times people will just kind of do the simplest one and be like, oh, they ran a big speed figure last time, just kind of looking at it on paper, and they're going to regress off that because it's a big figure. And that's fine. And a lot of times that works. And that's kind of the case here. I mean, he ran a big race. Optics Figures gave him a 101. So yeah, I think that's one of the many factors. The other thing is that race came off a break. 82 days coming into the race. You know the barn's hot, right? One of three, almost four winners on the card, and this is a 10-year-old. A 10-year-old horse, so a big effort, all things considered. Much like the winner earlier on, what was that? That was in the race prior. Pushed out to the lead, made the front end, and just was under an all-out drive. Even though he was by open lengths to the wire, still being pushed to finish and even drifting out late. So those are things that I want to look at. That big speed figure, people are going to see it on paper. But the race coming up off the bench, so some regression, right? Because he's running that race fresh. Age, I think, is a factor, especially in this case, being a 10-year-old. And then the visuals. Those visuals are really important. The lone trip, so not having much stress, still taking pressure, and then the drifting out late. Those are all things that, coming back, he's probably going to take a step back from. And especially if that break comes or that race comes on a short rest or with a step up in class. So those are things to look at. Race 8, again, I'll just touch on it real quick before we kind of deep dive into race 7. Finishing in that photo for the win, ran, almost just as good as a race, the winner. Finishing that photo, really, really, really tight photo. In fact, kind of took a rough beat as that horse came running on late to pass him. So race 7, this is another race that I wrote about for Brisnet, and a little bit more success here with When the Doves Cry making his second start of the meet. And I mentioned I liked him, and he ran on opening day. I thought the spot, he might have a pace advantage, but it was a tougher spot. The one thing I didn't like his warm-up. I thought he had too long, too aggressive of a warm-up. He had a warm-up here, but it was more of a jog. Again, I'm not a big fan, but I'll take that over like the aggressive, 5-6 minute long warm-up. Took pressure. He was a square in quadrant 1. Needed every bit of that square to kind of hold off his challenger, the place finisher, supercharger. So a good effort from him in that spot. He's probably going to get some rest after those 2 races, but I think it was a pretty smart move to come back here and State Bred Company off that first race and kind of reward the connections off that. The other horse that I mentioned in this race, and I kind of put a little caveat with that, was the number 8 Piece of Work. And the biggest thing to mention with this horse is that he's a 3-year-old facing older. And later on in the year in the season, that's not going to be any bit of an issue. We're going to have to see these horses step up, face older at some point. But at this time of the year, I'm not sure. Let me see if I can look it up real quick. This horse is born in March, so technically he's still a 2-year-old and facing older, and that's just such a big difference. And even on speed figures, if you're kind of going, trying to do the apples to apples thing, speed figure wise, he fit, but it's just such a big difference for these horses taking on older. So, he finished 10th in that race, was kind of forwardly placed, and then lost ground going into the turn. I really would not hold this effort too harshly against him, given that, and we're probably going to see him back with straight 3-year-old company. All right, we got a shorter video today. Again, that was just kind of a little, couple things I wanted to touch on, get that out of the way as we move on to the week. We got racing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Next week we'll have the holiday, so a lot of good stuff. Again, good luck to everybody over at the NHC, especially Optic CQ players. I do have kind of a rooting interest in you guys. And you've been doing so well, so a lot of momentum going into the NHC. Today, a couple plays up on Brisnet, looking at Oaklawn Park, and of course we've got Race of the Day on Optic CQ. I wrote up something over at Santa Anita, and I think Chris has a couple plays he'll probably throw in there as well. Definitely want to focus a lot of attention on Oaklawn and Santa Anita. Hearing there might be, or there already is, a cancellation at Aqueduct and off the turf at Gulfstream. So still a lot of racing today. Good luck to everybody. Check out those sites and see you back tomorrow.